All right, let's talk about something pretty game-changing. What if you could build a business that almost automatically protects itself when things get rough? Well, that's exactly what we're digging into today. We're looking at a huge financial strategy, shifting from those big, rigid capital expenses, what we call CapEx, to much more flexible operational expenses, or OpEx. It sounds technical, but trust me, this one simple switch can unlock some serious business agility.
So let's kick things off with what you might call the holy grail of managing money in a business. I mean, just imagine this. A company where every single dollar you spend perfectly tracks with every dollar you bring in. It sounds amazing, right? No more wasted money, no more paying for stuff you aren't even using. This right here, this is the ultimate goal, and it's really the big idea behind everything we're going to talk about. For the longest time, so many businesses have been stuck in what's basically a financial straitjacket. They're just weighed down by these massive, inflexible costs. Things like long-term office leases, super expensive machinery that might just be sitting there, and these big payrolls. These are the bills that just keep coming, month after month, like clockwork, no matter how the business is actually doing.
Okay, this is the perfect way to think about it. A business with really high fixed costs, it's kind of like a giant battleship. Sure, it's powerful, but man, is it slow to turn. When the market suddenly changes, it's basically a sitting duck. Now, compare that to a business with high variable costs. That's more like a whole fleet of speedboats. They can pivot on a dime, they can adapt, and they can navigate even the choppiest economic waters.
So, to really get why this shift is so powerful, we have to understand the basic DNA of our costs. Let's break down the two fundamental types. You've got fixed costs and you've got variable costs. So, on one hand, you have your fixed costs. These are the constants, right? Your rent, your insurance, your full-time salaries. They're pretty much the same every single month. But then you've got your variable costs. These are like chameleons. They change all the time. Think raw materials, shipping fees, sales commissions. They go up when business is booming, and here's the magic part. They go down, sometimes all the way to zero when things slow down. And that brings us to the two big ways we spend money. First, there's capital expenditures, or CapEx. These are the huge, upfront, one-time purchases for things you're going to own for a long, long time. Think about buying a whole building or a ton of computer servers. Then you have operational expenditures, or OpEx. These are the day-to-day, pay-as-you-go costs of just running the business, like a monthly subscription to a cloud service. And this whole strategic shift we're talking about, it's all about moving away from that big CapEx model and embracing the flexibility of OpEx. Okay, so how does this great conversion actually work? What are we really doing here? Well, it's all about making a strategic choice to move from being financially locked in to being financially free. The logic behind it is actually pretty straightforward. Instead of making some massive upfront investment, say buying a warehouse, you choose a pay-as-you-go service instead. In this case, maybe you use a third-party logistics provider. And just like that, poof, your costs are no longer a giant fixed lease payment every month. Now, they're tied directly to how much stuff you're actually shipping out the door. Your expenses scale up and down, perfectly in sync with your business. And we see this happening all around us. I mean, two perfect examples come to mind. The big one is the move from owning your own data center to just using the cloud. That is the classic CapEx to OpEx shift. You stop buying all that expensive hardware and you just start paying for the computing power you actually use. Same thing with warehousing. Instead of getting locked into a 10-year lease, companies now use what are called 3PLs, or third-party logistics. They've turned a huge fixed cost into a much, much more manageable variable one. All right, so we get the what and we get the how, but let's talk about the payoff. I mean, why go through all this trouble? What are the actual benefits that this unlocks? This is where it gets really good. This quote really just nails it. A variable cost structure acts like a built-in financial shock absorber. When a crisis hits or the market takes the downturn, your expenses automatically shrink right alongside your revenue. It completely shields you from that brutal 1-2 punch of having sales drop while your costs stay stubbornly high. So let's just lay out the key advantages here. First, you radically reduce your financial risk. Second, you can scale up like crazy without needing a ton of upfront cash for new buildings or equipment. And third, you massively improve your cash flow because you're finally aligning what you spend with what you earn. That frees up so much cash to invest back into growing the business. And listen, this isn't just some abstract, theoretical idea of flexibility. We are talking about real hard cash savings for companies that make that switch from owning a warehouse to using a variable cost service. The total savings often lands somewhere between 15 and 25%. That's not pocket change. That's a huge boost to the bottom line.
Okay, so let's say you've done it. You've made the shift, you've achieved this amazing financial agility, your costs are now flexible. But this newfound freedom brings a whole new challenge with it. How do you steer the ship now? You're going to need a new compass to navigate this much more dynamic world.
And this really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? When your costs are constantly changing, how in the world do you know if you're actually making money? How do you make smart decisions about where to invest or what to cut? Your old financial playbook? Well, it's just not going to work anymore.
Well, the answer has a name: contribution margin. This becomes your new North Star. It's basically the money that's left over from each sale after you've paid off all the direct variable costs associated with that sale. This is the cash that contributes to paying your fixed bills, like rent and salaries, and eventually becomes pure profit. And the formula itself is beautifully simple. It's just your revenue minus your variable costs. That's it. That equals your contribution margin. So in this example, you make $100,000 in revenue, you have $50,000 in variable costs. That leaves you with a $50,000 contribution margin. That 50 grand is your war chest. That's the money you have to work with to cover everything else and actually turn a profit.
So here's the crucial point, and it's a big one. Contribution margin is not just some boring accounting term. It is a decision-making superpower. It shows you, with crystal clarity, the true incremental profitability of every single thing you sell. It tells you exactly how much cash each sale is generating to help keep the lights on and grow the company.
And this is how it's actually used on the ground. Smart managers use it to set smarter prices, making sure every sale is actually profitable. They use it to analyze their entire product lineup so they can double down on their high-margin winners. And they use it to make those really tough drop or keep decisions. I mean, if a product isn't even covering its own variable costs, it's actively losing you money with every sale. It's a drain on the whole business.
All right, let's pull all of this together. The reality is, the world we operate in today is volatile, it's unpredictable. And having financial flexibility is no longer just a nice to have. It's really the new foundation for survival and growth. If there's one thing to take away from this whole explainer, it's this. That strategic shift from big, fixed capital expenses to scalable, variable operational expenses is how you transform a rigid financial burden into a flexible, powerful strategic advantage. But remember, that flexibility is only half the battle. Adopting contribution margin as your key metric, as your North Star, is what makes sure that all that newfound agility actually translates into a real, predictable, and sustainable profit. The two have to work together, hand in hand. So, I'll leave you with this one question to think about. Is your business's financial structure a heavy anchor holding you back in rough seas? Or is it an agile sail ready to catch the wind and propel you forward? In today's world, that choice could be the difference between sinking and soaring. Thanks for tuning in.